Happy Thursday. I'm Allegra with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. So happy to be here with you today. And today I am back home in Los Angeles. If you saw last week's or listened to last week's podcast, you know that I was with some of my oldest friends, and it was so nice to get together because we all live in different states, and I sometimes I don't get to see these ladies all year long except for when we all get together, and it's so wonderful. It really just we feel like we're kids again when we hang out. It is so light and easy and effortless, and I if you have women like that in your life or friends like that in your life, I highly recommend that you find a way to spend time with them, because when we are together, it really just feeds us and sets us up to go back to our the rest of our lives as moms, as working moms, as partners, just re-energized and refreshed and reinvigorated. It was so much fun. But it was also the best of both worlds because I felt ready to come home when the time was winding down. So I don't know if you've ever felt this way where you go on vacation and you think to yourself, "Oh, that was too short. I really could have used a couple more days." Versus when you go for long enough that you think to yourself, "You know what? I'm ready to get home." And that's what was really nice about being gone for I was gone for 11 days, but there was quite a bit of travel in there. So I was gone for 11 days, and definitely the last 2 days, I was ready to get home. I was starting to think about missing my family and those sorts of things, and it was wonderful to have that time to rejuvenate, but then to come home and be like, "Okay, I'm ready to be here. This is where I wanna be." That's the best of both worlds, don't you think? So I am Allegra with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. If it's your first time joining me, then you know that I am all about helping you prioritize yourself and your goals by harnessing the power of planning, which is why my podcast is called Harness the Power of Planning. And if you're watching me live on YouTube or wherever you're watching live, hi, thank you for joining. Feel free to chat. I do see those chats. Hello, Daniel. And if you are watching the recording, feel free to chat then too, because guess what? I will also see those and I will also respond to those if you have a question. But here is the bouquet of books that my co author and I, Natasha, wrote. Natasha is often on this podcast with me. And all four of our books are workbooks. They're designed to help you prioritize yourself and your goals. That's why we say that's our mission, to help you prioritize yourself and your goals by harnessing the power of planning. So each of these four books will help you to harness the power of planning in a different way. If you don't know where to start, I suggest you start with 3, 2, 1, done. This is our quick win. Literally, you will do this 45-minute workbook. You see it's super short. For those of you listening to the podcast, I know you can't see, but it is like a quarter of an inch wide. It's very small. So you can read this in 45 minutes. It is a workbook, and you do this and you're instantly going to do things differently, because we don't just talk about how to do things different. We show you how to do things differently. And this is all about creating a strategic framework for your to-do list so that you don't look at your list and you think, where should I start? No, you look at your list and you think, I know exactly where to start because I have a framework now. And you can actually find our books at tinyurl.com/BYWD books. And I can't find the exact URL for this book, but here's a URL for one of the other books, and it will take you where you can see all of our books. I have to change the URLs. So this is the quick win. The book that you see on the screen now with the QR code is called Rock Your Morning: 3 Simple Steps to Take Control of Your Morning. This is book 2. So you start here, bada bing, bada bang. The yellow book is step 2. And this is all about cultivating a space to take care of your needs so that you can show up as your best self in all parts of your life. It's all about creating a morning ritual. There's a ton of science behind the benefits of creating a morning ritual. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that my morning ritual is what keeps me sane and happy and motivated. And I did it this morning. I do it every morning. I don't always do it perfectly. It's not about doing perfectly, right? It's not about drinking whatever, 64 ounces of water or 60, maybe you should go higher than that. Let's say 70 ounces. It's not about drinking 70 ounces of water every day. It's about drinking, maybe some days 69 ounces and some days 73 ounces and some days 60 ounces. But it evens out. Maybe water wasn't the best analogy for this because you do need your water. But you know what I mean? Let's talk about 10,000 steps, okay? Some days I do 15,000 and some days I do 9,000 and it all evens out and that's what's great. And same thing with the morning ritual. I don't do it perfectly every day, but I do some of it every day. Even when I'm on vacation, even when things are nutty, like I came back to a sick kid. My kiddo has been unwell off and on, and we thought she had kicked it when I was leaving, and then she went back to school and she relapsed. And so my first day back, my feet had been on the ground less than 8 hours. And as soon as I could, I called the doctor and said, "Can I get an appointment today?" Because that was the kind of day it was. But I still fit in the things I needed to do so that I felt taken care of. Because when you start your day and you feel like you're being attacked by your day, that's just not a good feeling. It puts you on the defensive. Whereas having a morning ritual puts you on the offensive, which is why I think it's so important. So, that is what we are all about. And today I'm going to talk about two things. Today I'm going to talk about this idea of habit formation and gamifying habit formation. Maybe you've heard of this idea of gamifying things so that it becomes easier to do them. I've tried this. I have some thoughts on this, and I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm also going to talk about how these most recent wildfires have changed my emergency planning. Now, I've done a lot of emergency planning over the years. I've also done some emergency planning presentations for other organizations that I belong to, like PTA, that sort of thing. It's not by all an expertise of mine. It's simply something that I really believe in. And as a community member, I want my other community members to be educated about it. And so I have thought about it a fair amount. I have been doing it for many years personally. Let's say I have a solid 20 years of emergency planning under my belt. However, I've always said that your emergency planning is only as good as your most recent emergency because every emergency changes the way you think. And so now that it's been a few weeks since the fires have been, a daily threat, I want to talk a little bit about how it's changed my planning thinking. But before I start, I want to pull a card from my little deck of sayings here that sits here on my desk that I love so much. I haven't pulled one since the last time I was here in LA, so I always start from the back. It's a complete surprise to me. Let's see what it is. Live today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, just today. Inhabit your moments. Don't rent them out to tomorrow. Jerry Spinelli. I have no idea who Jerry Spinelli is. If you know who Jerry Spinelli is, I'd love to be educated on who he is. Let me just read this one more time. Live today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, just today. Inhabit your moments. Don't rent them out to tomorrow. I feel like there is a lot to unpack here. So I'm just going to go kind of line by line. Live today. Got it. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just today. So what Jerry is saying is don't relive the past and don't think so much about tomorrow. Just today. Inhabit your moments. So inhabit. I love this idea of inhabiting. So really being here, even right now, as I'm speaking on this microphone, I'm really thinking about the words I'm saying and the message I'm trying to get across. And those of you out there listening, yes, I'm in this moment. Are you in this moment? Are you really listening, or are you multitasking and doing something else? As wonderful tools as our devices are, they can also cross over into distraction very easily. So, whatever it is you're doing, inhabit it, whether it's listening to a podcast or doing something else. Okay, the last line. Don't rent them out to tomorrow. So by them, he means your moments. Don't rent them to tomorrow. So don't lend this moment to tomorrow. Be fully in this moment. I like it. I like it. Now, I do, as you know, like to plan. So I don't feel like planning is renting out my moments to tomorrow because I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not obsessing about tomorrow. I'm simply considering how whatever it is that I didn't get to do today, what I might want to do tomorrow. So, but I like the philosophy here, Jerry. So live today, not tomorrow. Okay. So let's get started with the podcast. Let me take a sip of water because I'm feeling a little parched. I must have been all that talk about water. So, gamification of habit formation. So, in our books, we talk a lot about habit formation because ultimately, the best way to ensure that you're living the life that you want to live is by taking the daily activities that you want to engage in and making them habits. Why is that? Well, your brain uses a lot of energy. Maybe you are aware of this. And because we are feast and famine animals, our body, our brain is constantly looking for ways to save energy. And because it uses so much energy, the brain itself, okay, so the brain takes up about, I forget the exact numbers. I think it was 20%. Hold on a second. Okay, so the weight of your brain is about, so okay. So the weight of your brain, I have it right. The weight of your brain is about 2% of your body weight. And yet, the energy that your brain takes up is 20% of your energy. That's right. So it's 2% of your weight, but it uses 20% of your energy. So 10 times more than the size of your body that it takes up is what it uses. Because it is such an energy sucker, the brain is constantly looking for ways to save energy because we're feast and famine animals. Our brain, look, our lives have changed a lot in the last 100 years. And by ours, I'm saying those of you listening to the podcast, those of us who have a device in our pocket, our lives have changed a lot compared to our grandparents' lives or our great grandparents' lives. However, our programming, our DNA, that has not changed. Therefore, we have the DNA of people who are feast and famine animals. And I was an anthropology major, so this is something that I studied a lot in college. So we are designed to save calories whenever we can. And because of this, because of the fact that our brain uses so many calories, it's constantly looking for ways to save calories. And the way it does this is by creating habits. Because when you do something habitually, it means you are in saving calorie mode. Now, we all have habits. You either get up in the morning and drink that glass of water, or you get up in the morning and hit the snooze button so you can go back to bed. They're both habits, but one of them is a habit that is probably helping you a little bit more because you're getting hydrated right away, versus the other habit, which is causing you to delay getting out of bed. And let me tell you, when you hit that snooze button, those whatever, 8 minutes of sleep, however long your snooze works, they're never worth what you got out of them because you can't actually complete any sort of sleep cycle in that amount of time. So you're not actually going to feel more rested. So the question is, are your habits serving you? And only you can decide if they're serving you because you know a habit is serving you when it's helping you move forward on something you want to accomplish, whether it's getting in more exercise or making an early morning phone call to somebody. It could be a friend, it could be a business associate. It doesn't matter. If it's something that you want to be doing, then yay, it's a habit that is serving you. But if it's a habit that's delaying you from doing the things that you want to be doing, then I would suggest that you need to get a new habit. Okay, so we talk a lot about habit formation in all of our workbooks, but especially in Morning Ritual, we talk about it. And once something becomes a habit, you know it's a habit because it's actually easier to do it than to not do it. And this was a really fascinating thing for me to realize because I realized that I had created a habit of washing my face at night when I came home. So I usually go to bed pretty early, 9:30, 10 o'clock, sometimes even 9 o'clock. And but like once a year, my husband and I go to a fundraising event that's filled with old friends, and we end up staying way later than we expect to because it's just so fun catching up with people. And regularly, we get in from this event around 2 a.m. And so this has happened the last few years where we get in around 2 a.m. and I'm standing there in front of the sink washing my face, sort of just shocked, looking shell shocked that I'm doing this because really all I want to do is be in bed. And yet I can't seem to stop myself from going through my evening ritual of my face routine. And if you're curious about my face routine, look at earlier podcasts, look at the YouTube channel because I've done my full face routine as a podcast, my morning routine at least. So definitely I knew it was a habit at that moment because it was like I couldn't stop myself from doing it. Another thing that happened was when I needed to go into the kitchen to grab something. It was early in the morning. I needed to go in the kitchen to grab something. But instead of grabbing the thing I needed to grab, I actually started doing the part of my morning ritual that takes place in the kitchen, which is unloading the dishes, making my warm lemon water, taking a couple of supplements, that sort of thing. And then I walked back into my bedroom, and when I was back in my bedroom, I realized, "Oh, shoot, I forgot the stepladder was the thing I needed. I forgot to grab the stepladder." And I forgot to grab the stepladder because my brain had instantly gone into habit mode. Because in the morning, when I step into the kitchen, my brain knows I do these things. So, we talk about habit formation in our morning ritual book. And here's the thing with the habit formation that tends to kind of bum people out a little bit, which is that it can take longer than you expect. The old way of thinking used to say that like 21 days or 24 days and you can have a new habit. The new science has shown that it could take more like 2 to 3 months to establish a habit. We're all different. So the numbers they're a little smushy in there, right? However, the new science also shows something that is fascinating, which is the more fun you make the thing that you're trying to do, the more quickly it becomes a habit because when something's fun, it releases these chemicals in your brain called dopamine. Well, many chemicals, but dopamine. And dopamine is actually like your brain's save button. Dopamine is why when you see a really inspiring talk, like a TED talk, or you have a teacher who just happens to be a great lecturer, you remember what they say versus when you see someone speak and they talk like this and they say things repetitively and it doesn't give you any joy. Okay, hopefully I didn't put you to sleep right then. But when someone speaks like that, they're not triggering the dopamine button. And therefore, whatever it is they're saying is not getting saved in your brain. So when something is fun, it gets saved as a habit much more quickly. Enter habit gamification. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't want to name names here, but there are lots of apps that you can download that will help to make habits that you want to create more quote unquote fun. They will, you know, you can give things cute little names, like instead of saying, you know, drinking water, you can say something like quenching my thirst or filling my body with life sustaining hydration. Whatever you want to say. You can call things fun things. You can also give yourself little stickers or sounds or noises or cheering when you have done the thing that you want to do. And then you can also set up sort of rewards on these gamified things to encourage you to get to the point where, okay, you've hit 60 days of drinking water or 90 days of drinking water. There's all different kinds of apps. I've tried a few of them. Here's what I found. I'm not motivated by those apps. Now, I like them in some ways because they help me track things that I would ordinarily track in my planner. So just let me hold it up really quick. Here's the planner that I've been using for about 10 years. And you see it has this habit tracker area. This is a page that I haven't used yet, so nothing's written there. But it has a place to track things like drinking water, eating healthy, doing the professional things you want to do. Like, for instance, I need to watch some of a training video today. That's something that I could track, that I would track either in these apps or in my journal. And by the way, if you're curious to what my favorite planner is, here it is. Here's the link to it. I've been using it for about 10 years. It's not perfect because there is no perfect planner. I just want to throw that out there. The only thing that you need to know is that how you use the planner depends on your planning process, which is why this podcast is called Harness the Power of Planning, not Harness the Power of the Planner, because you're the planner. And this is the notebook is just a tool to help your planning process. So, gamified apps, I like them at first because they help me to more easily track things than using a paper planner. And I mean, I guess more easily that's relative because really it's just a click instead of a check mark in my paper planner. So that's not necessarily easier per se, but the idea is that it can be easier. When I start using these apps, I usually do enjoy them at first because it's a way to aggregate a bunch of things, like often, let's say health things. So, okay, check off. I ate like an app I used recently. I was able to check off different vegetables that I'd eaten throughout the day. Okay, great. I've eaten cruciferous vegetables. Great. I had some legumes today. Great. I ate an apple first thing in the morning. That was cool because it reminded me to do those things, but the gamified process itself was not something that I looked forward to because in a lot of ways, guess what? It was just another thing to do. I also did another app that was way more gamified than the one I was just describing. Like literally you named your quests. So like let's say you have a quest to exercise 3 times a week. You would give that a name and it was almost like you were on a journey to slay a dragon sort of thing. So it was way more gamified. And that one actually I didn't spend really any time with because setting it up took so much time that I wasn't enjoying the process. So here's my thought on gamified apps. I think whether or not it makes it more fun for you is really up to you. Maybe if you're a gamer, which I am not a gamer, maybe you would find these more enjoyable. Personally, for me, they were just another thing to do. What I did like about them, at least at first, was that they were a reminder to do these things. And I feel like that can be a little helpful to get the habit formed. But ultimately, what really keeps a habit going is when you start to see the benefits of doing the thing. When you realize, oh, wow, I feel more energized because I'm drinking water. Or, wow, I'm really sleeping better at night by going to bed at a specific time. Or I'm noticing a difference because the supplements have finally hit your bloodstream. You know, it takes a little while sometimes to load up your bloodstream with enough of the supplements for you to feel a difference. When you start feeling the difference, that's what keeps you motivated. That's what really establishes the habit for me. And so, what I would say to you is that I believe, and look, everyone's different. So maybe you'll love a gamified app. But what I believe is that I kind of feel like gamified apps are a little bit like hiding the vegetables from your kids. You might hear people talking about pureeing carrots into the pasta sauce so that the kids don't see it. And you can do that with a lot of vegetables. You won't see it. However, I feel like it's kind of sending the wrong message. The message that I want my kid to have with vegetables is that you need to eat food that I call it growing food versus treats. You need to eat food that helps grow your body. And you need to do that because this is how you ensure that you feel good, that you have energy, that you can sleep at night, that you stay healthy. Arr, arr. Yeah. That's been a struggle the last few weeks. And that's how your kiddo is going to learn to eat vegetables as a long-term strategy for life rather than when they're an adult and they're not they're not eating any vegetables because they didn't grow up with vegetables. And you say to them, "Wait, I pureed vegetables into your mac and cheese all the time." And they're like, "What? I didn't know. You didn't tell me." So that's how I feel about gamified apps. It's a little bit like hiding the vegetables. I think a better strategy long term with habit formation is to learn to fall in love with the process. Because it's not about, they say life isn't a destination, it's a journey. Same thing with habit formation. Notice the changes as you're doing the thing that you want to be doing. Notice the increased confidence, the increased energy, how you feel better. That is what is going to really get you to establish a habit. And then again, if you can make it fun. So, for instance, for a long time, I didn't have a skincare routine because I was younger and my skin was great and it didn't feel dry or anything like that. And then as I got older, when I hit 40, basically, I started to notice my skin was drier. I had some discoloration. That's basically when I started having a skincare routine. So just about 10 years ago. And at first, it was a slog because I didn't enjoy the process. But then found some ways to make it fun for myself. So, for instance, I love the scent of roses. So I would seek out products that had roses in it. And because of that, I then started to enjoy the process of putting on the skincare. So that is what made it fun for me. So find a way to make it fun for you. If you don't love the taste of water, maybe you like the taste of lemon water or lime water, and that can make it more fun for you. Or you get a fun glass. See this fun little glass? It looks like there's a ring on here. This makes it fun to take a drink because I love interacting with this glass. So instead of using gamified apps, I would suggest finding ways to make the activity fun for yourself so that you want to establish the habit faster. Okay, topic number 2, how my emergency preparedness planning has changed because of the wildfires. So, as I mentioned, I believe that your emergency preparedness planning is only as good as the last emergency you lived through because that's what informed your thinking, right? No fault of your own. The reality is that sometimes it can be hard to imagine how things are going to be. So, a huge thing that came out of this was the fact that my grandmother is bedridden. She's 100 years old, she's bedridden, and we had to figure out how we were going to evacuate with someone who cannot move on their own. And the thing that really informed my thinking about this was when the evacuation notice was a mile away and the fire was 2 miles away, we called paramedics to come and see if we could get my grandmother transferred via a gurney and an emergency vehicle. And when they came to us, they said two things. One, we can only move you within a certain perimeter. And two, we're supposed to take you to an emergency room. And if we take you in an emergency room, because you're not yet evacuated, they are not going to be able to provide any support to your grandmother because she is not, quote unquote, in need of emergency treatment. And that was eye opening because it made me realize that there is no, like when you board an airplane and they say, hey, anyone who needs a little extra time boarding, there's nothing like that for evacuating. There's nothing like, hey, if you need a little extra time evacuating because you have someone who is not as mobile, or you have little ones who are not as mobile, or you have many animals with you, maybe start evacuating now. There is no procedure like that in place. So, what a big thing that has changed for my thinking is to realize that I would need to evacuate much earlier than any evacuation notices because of the fact that I have someone who is bedridden. So, take that into account when you're thinking about your evacuation. Another thing that came out was talking to my friends who were also affected by the fire. And if you were following the fires, then you know that they were being set off in random places. And there were times when I was not in danger, but a friend of mine was. And actually, it was Natasha. So I said to Natasha, hey, if you need to come this direction, you're more than welcome to. And she said, thanks, same to you. Well, guess what? A week later, we were in that situation where we were possibly going to have to go to her. And so it was wonderful to know who the people were who offered to take us in. And, we did the same for them. And that kind of like sets you up for the next emergency. These are the people who are going to be looking out for you. The third thing is that my bags are packed. My emergency bags have always been packed as if I was going to hike out of my house. However, that's assuming sort of, catastrophic failure of infrastructure during an earthquake. The fires, because they didn't start near us, we had a lot more time to prepare. And so I broadened my evacuation prep list. So I have my emergency bags are packed just like they always are packed. But now I've added a list and it's packed with the emergency bags. And this is if you have time to pack the cars to evacuate list. So this is like the bug out bags, that's what they're commonly called in prep circles. The bug out bags, if you will, those are backpacks designed to just be worn. But if you have time to collect things and leave, you might want to think about what you would take. For instance, I know people who didn't have a lot of time, but they had enough time to grab important papers. They didn't think to grab photos at the time, and they were really upset about that. And so now I have this list that lives with our bug out bags. And this list has things like photo albums on it because I'm not going to take every photo album, but there are a handful of photo albums that I do want to take. And so those are on the list. There's also a old mahjong set that's 100 years old that I grew up with that is very precious to me. I would want to take it. There's also a wooden bowl that was something that I inherited from a great grand aunt that is very precious to me. It's a wooden bowl. It means a lot to me. And so these two things, look, they're not things that I would carry out in a life or death situation, but if I have time to pack a car, they're absolutely going to be things that I want to carry out. So I had time this time around to pack up our bags carefully. And so as I was unpacking them, I made the list. So you might want to go through the thought experiment of if I had to evacuate, what would I want to take? And then actually go through the process and pack up your bags. Because my third tip is to make sure that you have luggage to carry all the stuff you would want to take. And make sure that luggage has wheels. Because again, I've never thought about an emergency where I might have a car and therefore have more to take. However, the people who did evacuate in cars, unfortunately, some of them had to get out of their cars and walk because the cars ended up in some sort of traffic jam at some point. And many people had to leave things in their cars because they didn't have bags with wheels on them and they couldn't carry them. All, the things like photo albums can be quite heavy. If you only have a mile to walk, hey, that's not so far. But if you have to carry them versus rolling them, that's a big difference. So be sure you have some sort of luggage with wheels. I actually have a couple of large duffel bags that have wheels and a telescoping handle. And so I filled those, I have two of them. I filled those completely. My husband and I were able to get our backpacks, our emergency backpacks on and wheel one of these. Our daughter also has an emergency backpack, and she was able to wheel a little cart that has a little solar panel thing that we have, this little solar quote unquote generator. The company's called Jackery. I'm a huge fan of it. Um, this is actually the Jackery that we have. Wonderful power station, highly recommend it. Holds its charge super well when you're not using it. We take it camping all the time. It's fantastic. And so she has the little cart that has the Jackery, and our dog even has little saddle bags so she can carry her food and her bowls. So know that you can handle everything that it is that you need to take, and know that you have wheels for it. So those are my 3 tips. Think about how your family situation might need a little extra time, right? Do you have people with different abilities? Do you have young people, older people? Do you have pets? Take those into consideration. The second tip is to create a list. First of all, create a to-go bag and have that packed at all times, but then create the secondary list of, hey, if I have a little bit more time and if I have my car, these are the things that I would like to take. And then third, make sure you have luggage with wheels that can support the weight of all the stuff that you want to take. Pack it up, test it out, see if it works. Those are my 3 tips for how my emergency planning has changed since the wildfires. So thank you so much for joining me today. As always, dream wild, wild dreamers. And if you want to take your planning to the next level, I actually have activated our life planning course. You can check it out at tinyurl.com/hpop. There's actually the QR code right there. If you go to our website too, you can find it there at bywdreams.com. And thank you so much for joining me. Dream wild, wild dreamers.